We are very happy to be back here in Switzerland. Actually, we were here already a few times. The first time was in 2009, when we came for the first time to SAM to see an exhibition on Madelon Wiesenthorp. Then we had the chance to come back in 2014 and last year to do some lectures here. And we actually never thought that we would be opening this exhibition today. As you probably know, so I'm Kim Courage and he's Felipe Ferrari. We are Plan Comu, and we are an architectural office founded in 2012 in Santiago de Chile. We are trying to define strategies to maximize and reinforce public and collective space, understood as a key aspect of architecture, regardless of the scale or program, by means of simple architecture tools through a critical discourse, research, design, and building.
Because we are aware of the fact that our cities are informed and affected by ideologies. Today, all-encompassing capital-based market logic is the dominant ideology worldwide. We can see this extremism of the system in Chilean neoliberalism, producing an increasing economization, privatization, and commodification of all resources and social needs. Based on private property and perpetual debt, the current world order privileges a few at the expense of the many, globally eradicating existing forms of commons. That is why it is so urgent to radically correct the state of things, to strengthen the public realm, and to reinforce the collective consciousness against the many inconsistencies of our global capital accumulation. We believe architecture has a lot to say on this conflict. Only by confronting ourselves at once with both ideology and commons, we will be able to provide form as politics and thus enable emancipatory politics to become form again. In the end, what is at stake is culture and the way we live, including the values that define the model of any given society. We believe that the role of designers is crucial in framing this struggle. The designer as a public intellectual, in our case, through the architectural project, having a critical and strategic approach toward briefs and commissions in order to question and transform spatial hierarchies and use. So we will go briefly, we will show some examples on this. So we will show a few projects, and the idea, our aim is to actually look for the extra common space. First project, this is the first project we did as Plan Comu back in 2012. It is both a statement and architectural project. The commission was to rebuild from scratch a commercial building in the crossing of the two main streets of downtown San Javier, an area devastated by Chilean earthquake back in 2010. Like any other project in an urban context, this building should do its best in order to improve the quality of public space. By directly confronting both public and private realms, avoiding intermediate spaces or in-between spaces inside the building, the sidewall gets 100 more square meters of additional surface, which are used to increase the size of the slide corner of the block required by local building regulations. This space, which anyone can use, broadens the gap between the building and the two streets in the corner. The facade results in two faces with the same dimensions. Actually, the building does not pretend to respond to any other input besides the one mentioned before. Second project is, there are two museums, a Museum of Architecture and Photography in Hungary. It was an international competition a few years ago. The proposal in this case considers the Architecture Museum, the Museum of Photography, and its surroundings as a single unit. This achieved through the use of the same order in all the sub-elements, which is mainly defined by the structural system. The The only difference between them, apart from their orientation and a specific requirement, is the color of the vertical surface in public areas. This small difference in each museum reveals different identities, which at the same time are part of the same unit. Both museums are defined by the same volume, with its largest and main facade facing, framing an urban public space of around 80 meters per 50 meters between the two constructions. Administrative programs are located on the top floor, while technical and exhibition programs, which require artificial light, spread over 3 floors underground. Thus, energy consumption is reduced by heat or cool these spaces. These operations produce an extra space in each museum from a height of 10 meters between these two areas required by the competition, one high and the other buried. This public empty of unique spatial conditions in the context of Budapest are a testing ground waiting to be appropriated by citizens and agendas of both museums.
So the third project we'll present is a small square in Valdivia in the south of Chile. It was also a competition. The project proposes a direct relationship between architecture, landscape, and civic culture, defined by 2 strategic interventions. A pocket garden, which offers spaces for contemplation and celebrates the native vegetation of southern Chile, bordered by a covered gallery, which offers a number of facilities encouraging collective use and encounters. First, a 250 square meter area with natural soil and dense vegetation located at the center of the square is planted with local native species. This green oasis can be used by all citizens, as well as operating as a filter to protect the proposed gathering spaces from traffic disturbance and other discomfort caused by the adjacent main street. A perimeter clear of obstacles, benches, and artificial light make this space safe, comfortable, and welcoming during day and night. Second, we propose to build a continuous gallery with several terraces associated with different programs that respond to their immediate context. Bicycle racks, eating space, a recycling point, chess tables, and a small library. This new structure frames and activates the Transform Square as a new landscape, a common service station in the center of the city. The next project was also made in the context of Future Architecture Platform and our first built project outside Chile. A commission by Museum of Art and Design, of Architecture and Design, sorry, in Ljubljana, in the context of the Biennale of Design. Developed together with Portuguese landscape architect Tiago Torres Campos. Instead of producing a pavilion, as proposed by the Commission, the project was conceived as a constellation of public space micro-interventions related with built or natural pre-existences in Nove Fugine, a neighborhood initially planned in the late 50s on the eastern part of the city of Ljubljana and next to Ljubljanica River, which currently has 15,000 inhabitants. The intervention aimed at upgrading a series of places identified on site by forging meaningful connections with their history, spatial and atmosphere attributes, cultural role within the structure of public space, and social relevance within the community. The interventions all belong to one typology. They are small plinths made of brick, evoking Comuna Fundamentos installation for Venice Biennale 2012 by Kun Malvezzi architect, all strategically placed along significant elements of the neighborhood. This family of devices constructs, develops, and reinforces different uses of public space and specific relations with the surroundings. platforms for contemplation, meeting points, stages for events, playing device, and or simply structure to sit down and enjoy the communal life of their neighborhood. A constellation of common places to be appropriated by an engaged community of all ages.
Last project we will introduce now is being developed by Plan Comu in the context of a collaboration agreement signed by the General Cemetery of Santiago, the oldest public cemetery in Chile, and the School of Architecture of the Catholic University, represented in this case by our practice. We started a research on this funerary complex back in 2015, an auto commission where we have been able to design the brief. So, following the thesis of the General Cemetery as a city model, we propose to understand this commission, in this case a block of funeral niches, as a collective housing building. The project considers as equally important to properly insert between the existing niche walls, second, to respond to the demand established by the client, in this case related to maximize the number of marketable units. Third, to offer a typological diversity, attending to the requirements of supply, purchase, and use. And four, probably the most important for us, to provide common infrastructure and associated public spaces for visitors. The construction of this project should start in the end of this year. So let's continue with the curatorial approach. Towards a common architecture, well, common architecture is not a movement, it's a process of collective and ongoing self-formation, taking architecture as a common field of knowledge. So the first thing we will show, you can see about this is in the room number 3, and it's an international and collaborative research initiated and led by our practice back in 2012. Focus on the discussion and production of formal strategies to maximize public or collective space. As Andrea was saying before, this project started in Chile, where neoliberalism is quite extreme. So in the beginning, we aspired to produce a catalog of cases to inject energy into architecture and its way to deal with the city. In this context, we imagine a possibility of resistance from within our discipline, architecture. The cases vary widely in their character, scale, form, and scope. Some of them, of course, are utopian, others are rather pragmatic and feasible under the current conditions in Chile or in Switzerland. It doesn't matter. So the methodology we used for this was straightforward. Each contributor has to present a text no longer than 300 words. And then after a series of discussions, we define together the proper drawing for these strategies. Somehow trying to dismantle the obsession of each author regarding individual ownership. Of course, we recognize us as authors, but we believe the competition between architects is a lost battle, a nonsense if you have a critical reading of what is happening now. So what started as an intuitive exercise inside our practice ended up as a very diverse and cohesive collection of strategies for our cities, a collective effort.
Now we'll shortly show a precedent for the collaboration with the local-based architect. So one of the spin-off of this research was urban playgrounds in Amadora, which is a dormitory town in the suburbs of Lisbon. There were 12 proposals of micro-public spaces designed by 10 young practice that we invited, and us, around the world, from around the world, in the context of Future Architecture Platform and Lisbon Architecture Triennale, the Form of Form. There we propose to focus on common space and to take Amadora as an example of a neglected and generic city suitable to test new spatial strategies. And for this, we propose to think of playgrounds as a transformative concept, a series of micro-public spaces, taking advantage of small plots, proposing different uses and spatial relations within the city, and to be appropriated by all users. Each practice, in that case, had to produce an isometric drawing, a collage, and a short text explaining their strategy. This project refers to our will to discuss, reflect, and collaborate with colleagues who share a similar vision of our position. The exhibition was about public space, but also about collaboration for another possible world. Here, the content of Gathering Basil, right behind us, has a similar spirit. The city of Basel is small, wealthy, and of low density, which makes it a perfect field of study to test new strategies and ideas for urban public space. In this context, we invited 6 local practices to propose interventions based on their analysis of public space in Basel. Again, it was an invitation to think of a series of public spaces with the same spirit of the previous experiments. We thought this exhibition was an opportunity to present a series of site-specific strategies to introduce a new, playful, collective, and spontaneous conception of public space as a constellation of intervention inserted in Basel urban fabric. This time, we also encourage the invited practice, namely César Sumter, Fouquetin del Rio, Manuel Hertz, Rabaranu Hutzoller, Scheibler und Villard, and Vekshay Schmidt, to define a feasibility model to their proposals. So here, each practice had to produce an isometric drawing, a text, and a diagram of potential stakeholders for their proposal. We don't want to talk just about crazy ideas, but actually to see some of them built in the near future, we hope. We are very thankful to all of them, of course, and we hope this can be feasible.
So Last Room shows a series of video interviews. We have been doing video since 2006 through On Architecture, an audiovisual archive of architecture, but that's another story. As Andreas was saying, for this exhibition, we had great talks with Barbara Busser, Tom Emerson from Studio Tom Emerson at ETH, Harry Guger from Lava EPFL, Monica Linder-Guarnacha from IVA Basel, Beat Aberhard, the Basel City Architect, and Philippe Caban. And the themes you can recognize are mainly about Swiss culture, Basel, and the state of public space, understood as a sphere where several interests and conditions collapse. We're extremely happy to have had these talks, informing our own thoughts about Switzerland, commons, and architecture in general.
So the last word is about the installations in the center of the room. As Andreas explained in German, on the walls there are a lot of content, but also which is the special character of this exhibition, that in the center we have space usable and different uses that we want to promote and to give to the museum, to transform it in a public space of the kind that we promote on the walls. Thank you.